My brother stole $47,000 using a forged deed to my house. I had him arrested instead of keeping it in the family. Hi everyone. Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Initial post. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some perspective from strangers on the internet. My name is Michael, I'm 31, and until 3 days ago, I thought I had a decent relationship with my older brother James, 33M. We weren't best friends, but we were family. We did holidays together, our kids played together, and I genuinely believed that despite our differences, we had each other's backs. I bought my house 4 years ago. It wasn't easy. I'd been saving since I was 22, working 2 jobs through most of my 20s, living in a cramped studio apartment while watching every penny. My wife Sarah and I finally had enough for a down payment on a modest 3-bedroom home in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. The American dream, right? James, on the other hand, has always been what my mother politely calls entrepreneurial. What that really means is he's jumped from one get-rich-quick scheme to another, always convinced the next one would be his ticket to millions. Real estate flipping, cryptocurrency, dropshipping, you name it, he's tried it and lost money on it. His wife Patricia works as a nurse, and honestly, she's been the only stable income in their household for years. The whole thing started when I decided to refinance my mortgage last week. Interest rates had dropped, and Sarah and I figured we could save a few $100s a month. Should have been simple, right? I called my mortgage broker, set up an appointment, and started gathering the necessary paperwork. That's when everything went to hell. The broker called me back the next day, confused. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "I'm looking at the property records, and there seems to be some confusion. The deed shows joint ownership between you and James Thompson. Is that correct?" I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's impossible," I told her. "My brother has nothing to do with my house. There must be some mistake." But there wasn't a mistake. At least, not the kind I thought. She emailed me the documents, and there it was in black and white, a quitclaim deed dated 6 months ago, supposedly signed by me, adding James as a 50% owner of my property. The signature looked like mine, but something was off. The way the M curved, the angle of the cross on the T, close, but not quite right. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my filing cabinet and found my original deed. Just my name and Sarah's. No James. I then checked our home equity line of credit statement online, something I admittedly hadn't looked at in months because we hadn't been using it. $47,000 had been withdrawn over the past 5 months. I think I sat at my kitchen table for an hour, just staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. My own brother had forged my signature, stolen my house, or at least half of it, and had been draining the equity I'd spent years building. Sarah came home from work to find me still sitting there. When I explained what happened, she went through the same stages I did: confusion, disbelief, and then white-hot rage. But Sarah's always been the practical one. While I was still in shock, she was already on the phone with our lawyer friend, Christopher. Christopher told us to do 3 things immediately. First, don't contact James. Second, file a police report. Third, contact the FBI, because this likely constituted federal wire fraud and identity theft across state lines. The fake deed had been filed in the county office, but the hellic withdrawals had been transferred to an out-of-state account. I wanted to drive to James's house right then. I wanted to look him in the eye and ask him how he could do this to me. To us. To my kids who called him Uncle Jamie. But Christopher was adamant. Any contact could be construed as intimidation or could give James time to destroy evidence or move assets. So instead, I sat in a police station for 3 hours, filing reports, showing documents, watching as the detective's expression grew more serious with each piece of evidence. "This is well-documented fraud," he told me. "Your brother didn't just make a mistake or push a boundary. This was deliberate, calculated, and criminal." The detective explained that the fake deed had been notarized by someone named Linda Martinez. They'd already run her name. She was a notary whose license had been revoked 2 years ago for, wait for it, notarizing fraudulent documents. James had specifically sought out a corrupt notary to make this happen. But here's the part that really gets me. I found out James had been planning this for at least a year. Christopher helped me get access to some financial records through legal channels, and we discovered James had been in serious debt. Like, 6 figures to various creditors serious. His latest business venture, some kind of Amazon automation scheme, had collapsed, and he owed money to some very unforgiving people. He didn't come to me for help. He didn't ask for a loan. He didn't even hint that he was in trouble. Instead, He spent months planning how to steal from his own brother. He researched property law, found a crooked notary, practiced forging my signature, and then executed his plan while showing up to Sunday dinners at my house, playing with my kids, and looking me in the eye like everything was normal. The FBI agent assigned to the case, Special Agent Johnson, told me that this level of family fraud is more common than people think, but that doesn't make it any less devastating. He said they take these cases seriously because the violation of trust makes them particularly heinous. When someone steals from family, they're not just taking money or property, they're destroying the fundamental bonds that hold society together. As I write this, it's been 72 hours since I discovered the fraud. James doesn't know that I know yet. The FBI asked me to maintain normal contact while they build their case. I had to text him yesterday about our mom's birthday next week, acting like everything was fine. He responded with his usual emoji-filled message, no hint of guilt or worry. Tomorrow morning, they're executing search warrants on his house and his office, a rented workspace where he runs his various schemes. They want to seize his computers and phones before he has a chance to destroy evidence. Agent Johnson says they already have enough to charge him, but they want to make sure they uncover the full extent of his crimes. There's a possibility this isn't his first time doing something like this. I haven't slept properly in 3 days. Sarah holds me at night while I stare at the ceiling, wondering how I missed the signs. Were there signs? Could I have prevented this somehow? How do I explain to my kids that Uncle Jamie won't be coming around anymore? How do I face my parents, who always believed their boys would look out for each other? I keep thinking about all the times James complained about how lucky I was. How I had it easy with my stable job and my simple life. I remember him making snide comments about how some people were meant to be workers while others were meant to be entrepreneurs. I thought it was just sibling rivalry, maybe some jealousy. I never thought it was the kind of resentment that would lead to this. The lawyer says I'll get my house back, that the fraudulent deed will be voided, and that I should be able to recover most of the stolen money through civil suits and insurance. But some things can't be recovered. The brother I thought I had never really existed. The trust is gone forever. The family dinners, the shared holidays, the cousins growing up together, all of that is over. I'm angry, devastated, and somehow relieved all at once. Relieved that I caught it when I did. Relieved that the law is on my side. Relieved that I have Sarah and friends like Christopher who immediately knew what to do. But mostly, I'm just sad. Sad that my brother valued money more than family. Sad that he looked at my hard work and saw an opportunity to steal rather than an example to follow. Sad that he was so desperate and proud that he chose crime over asking for help. Tomorrow, his world comes crashing down. Part of me feels guilty for being the cause of his downfall, but Christopher reminds me that I'm not the cause. James is. He made these choices. He committed these crimes. He destroyed our relationship. All I'm doing is protecting myself and my family from further harm. I'll update when I can. Right now, I need to try to sleep and prepare for what's coming. Wish me luck. Update 1, 3 days later. I barely know where to begin. The last 72 hours have been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, family drama, and revelations that have left me reeling. The FBI raid happened exactly as scheduled. At 6 a.m., agents knocked on James's door with a search warrant. According to Agent Johnson, James tried to play it cool at first, claiming he had no idea what they were talking about. That lasted about 5 minutes until they showed him the fraudulent deed with his fingerprints on it. Yes, he was dumb enough to leave prints on the document he filed. Patricia, his wife, was completely blindsided. The agent said she broke down crying, not from sadness but from rage. Apparently, James had been telling her that his new business venture was taking off and that they'd be able to move to a bigger house soon. She had no idea he was funding their lifestyle with stolen money, my stolen money. The search of his house and office revealed so much more than we expected. James hadn't just forged documents for my house. They found templates for fake deeds, practice signatures for multiple family members, including our parents and our cousin Robert, and a literal handbook he'd created on how to commit property fraud. He'd been studying this for over 2 years. But here's the worst part. They found emails between James and someone named David Chen, who apparently runs a consulting service that teaches people how to commit fraud. James had paid this guy $5,000 to learn the tricks of the trade. The FBI says Chen is now under investigation too, and James's case might help them take down a larger fraud ring. They also found the smoking gun, security footage from a UPS store showing James practicing my signature at one of their desks, using previous year's birthday cards I'd sent him as reference. The timestamp was 2 weeks before the fraudulent deed was filed. He spent hours perfecting it, making slight adjustments, comparing it against the originals. The premeditation is undeniable. James was arrested at his office and charged with wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. These are federal charges, not state, which means he's looking at serious prison time if convicted. The prosecutor told me he's looking at 15 to 20 years based on the amount stolen and the sophisticated nature of the scheme. The family explosion was immediate and brutal. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. My mother is devastated, alternating between defending James, he must have been desperate, and apologizing to me for raising a criminal. My father, who's usually the calm one, told me he's written James out of his will and doesn't want to hear his name again. Extended family members are taking sides. Some think I should have handled it within the family, instead of getting law enforcement involved. My Aunt Margaret actually had the audacity to say I was ruining James's life over money. I told her James ruined his own life when he decided to steal from me, and that this wasn't about money, it was about the fundamental betrayal of trust. She hung up on me. Patricia has been the unexpected ally in all this. After the initial shock wore off, she called me and apologized profusely. She's filed for divorce and is cooperating fully with the investigation. She told me things that make the betrayal even worse. James had been gambling online, had taken out loans in her name without her knowledge, and had even tried to convince her to get her parents to invest in his schemes. She's discovering that their entire financial life is built on lies and debt. She also revealed something that made my blood run cold. James had been at my house 3 weeks ago when I was at work and Sarah was out. He told Patricia he was borrowing some tools, but now we realize he was probably looking for financial documents, trying to figure out what else he could steal. We've changed all our locks and installed a security system. The legal process is moving quickly. The fraudulent deed has already been voided by a judge in an emergency hearing. The title company that missed the fraud is launching an internal investigation and has already offered a settlement to avoid a lawsuit. My homeowner's insurance has a rider for this kind of fraud, so I should recover most of the stolen HELOC funds, though it will take time. James's assets have been frozen by the court. Not that he had much. It turns out he was living entirely on stolen money and credit. His car is leased, his office rent is 3 months behind, and he owes money to at least a dozen creditors. The prosecutor says this actually helps my civil case because it shows clear financial motive. I had to have the hardest conversation of my life with my kids yesterday. My 8-year-old son Kevin asked why Uncle Jamie wasn't coming to Grandma's birthday party. How do you explain to a child that their uncle is a criminal? Sarah and I kept it simple. Uncle Jamie did something very wrong and has to face consequences for his actions. We'll give them more details when they're older. The prosecutor says James's lawyer is already floating the idea of a plea deal. They want to avoid trial, probably because the evidence is so overwhelming. Part of the deal would require James to pay full restitution, though given his financial situation, that seems unlikely to happen quickly. I've been seeing a therapist, on Christopher's recommendation. She specializes in betrayal trauma, and yes, that's a real thing. She says what I'm experiencing is similar to what people go through after discovering infidelity or other major deceptions. The person I thought I knew never existed. I'm grieving the brother I thought I had while dealing with the anger at the person he actually is. Sarah has been my rock through all this. She's handled the logistics, the lawyers, the insurance, the security upgrades, while I've been processing the emotional side. She's also been fielding calls from family members, protecting me from the worst of the drama. I don't know how I'd get through this without her. I've learned some hard lessons from this experience. First, always monitor your financial accounts and property records regularly. Second, family isn't exempt from being capable of terrible things. Third, when someone shows you who they are through their patterns of behavior, believe them. James had shown me for years that he was willing to cut corners, blame others for his failures, and believed he was entitled to success without work. I just never thought he'd direct that mentality at me. I'll update again after the next hearing. Thank you to everyone who has reached out with support and similar stories. It's sadly comforting to know I'm not alone in experiencing this kind of betrayal. Update 2, 2 months later. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how everything has concluded, though concluded might be too neat a word for the ongoing ripple effects of James's crimes. The legal proceedings moved faster than anyone expected. James's lawyer must have made it crystal clear that going to trial would result in a much harsher sentence, because James agreed to plead guilty to all federal charges. The plea deal included 8 years in federal prison, reduced from the potential 20. Full restitution to me, though more on that later. 3 years of supervised release after prison. A lifetime ban on working in financial services or real estate. A cooperation with the FBI's investigation into David Chen's fraud ring. The sentencing hearing was last week, and it was surreal seeing James in an orange jumpsuit and shackles. He'd lost weight, his usual cocky demeanor completely gone. When given the chance to speak, he delivered what sounded like a rehearsed apology, talking about his addiction to risk and how he'd lost his way. He claimed he always intended to pay me back once his investments paid off. The judge wasn't buying it. She called his actions a calculated betrayal of the most sacred trust between family members, and said his elaborate planning showed a complete lack of regard for anyone but himself. She also noted that he'd shown no genuine remorse, only regret at being caught. The financial resolution has been complex. Through the various insurance policies and the title company settlement, I've recovered about $38,000 of the $47,000 stolen. The remaining $9,000 is supposed to come from James, but here's where it gets interesting. During the asset investigation, forensic accountants discovered that James had actually stolen much more than we initially thought, just not from me. He'd convinced 3 of Patricia's relatives to invest in his fake business ventures, promising huge returns. Total stolen from them, $120,000. He'd also taken out credit cards in Patricia's name, maxing out about $50,000 in debt she didn't know existed. Patricia's divorce was finalized last month. She got full custody of their 2 kids, the house, what little equity was left after the mortgages James had secretly taken out, and most importantly, legal separation from his debts. She's declared bankruptcy to deal with the fraudulent credit cards, and she's moving in with her parents while she rebuilds her life. Here's the twist that nobody saw coming. James had a life insurance policy worth $500,000 that he'd purchased years ago when he was briefly successful in one of his ventures. Patricia was the beneficiary, but the policy had a clause about criminal acts. However, since Patricia was an innocent victim of his crimes, the insurance company agreed to pay out $200,000 to her for the financial damage he'd caused her. In an extraordinary act of grace, Patricia insisted on giving me $30,000 from that payout, more than covering my remaining losses and the legal fees I'd incurred. She said it was the least she could do, given what James had put us both through. She also distributed money to her relatives who'd been scammed. The family dynamics remain complicated. My parents have essentially disowned James. They put money in an account for his kids' education but want nothing to do with him personally. My mother aged years in these 2 months, the stress and shame taking a visible toll. She's in therapy now, dealing with the guilt of wondering if she somehow enabled James's behavior by always making excuses for him when we were younger. Some extended family members still think I overreacted, but their opinions became irrelevant when we discovered James had been planning to target them next. The FBI found documents where he'd researched their property records and financial situations. My cousin Robert, who'd been defending James, went silent after learning he was next on James's list. The Chen fraud ring investigation has expanded significantly thanks to James's cooperation. Turns out, this was a nationwide operation that had helped dozens of people commit similar frauds. James's testimony has led to 11 arrests so far. The FBI agent told me that while it doesn't excuse James's actions, his cooperation has helped prevent many other families from going through what we did. I've had to make some hard decisions about boundaries. I've told James through his lawyer that I don't want any contact with him. Not now, not when he gets out. I won't be reading any letters, accepting any calls, or participating in any restorative justice programs. Some people think this is harsh, but my therapist has helped me understand that forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I can work on forgiving James for my own peace of mind without ever allowing him back into my life. The practical aftermath has been extensive. Sarah and I have implemented what our lawyer calls fortress-level financial security. A fraud alerts on all our accounts. A title monitoring for our property. Irregular credit checks. A safe deposit box for important documents. A legal documentation that explicitly prohibits James from any claim to our assets. Or a restraining order that goes into effect when he's released. We've also set up similar protections for my parents and other family members who might be vulnerable. The psychological impact has been the hardest part. I still have dreams where James and I are kids, playing together, and I wake up with this crushing sadness. My therapist says it's normal to grieve the relationship, even when the other person is the one who destroyed it. The betrayal has changed how I see the world. I'm more cautious, less trusting. Sarah says I've become hypervigilant about financial matters, checking accounts obsessively. We're working on finding a balance between protection and paranoia. My kids have handled it as well as can be expected. We've been honest with them in age-appropriate ways. They know Uncle Jamie did something wrong and has to go to jail. They've asked if he's a bad person, and we've tried to explain that good people can make bad choices, but that doesn't mean we have to let them hurt us again. There have been unexpected positives. Patricia and Sarah have become close friends, bonding over their shared experience. Patricia's kids still play with ours. We decided the cousins shouldn't suffer for James's crimes. My relationship with my parents has actually strengthened. We've had more honest conversations in these 2 months than in the previous decade. I've also connected with a support group for victims of family fraud. It's more common than you'd think, and there's something healing about sharing stories with people who understand the unique pain of being betrayed by blood. One member said something that stuck with me: they didn't just steal money, they stole our ability to trust freely. Looking back, the red flags were there. James's constant belief that he was destined for greatness despite repeated failures. His resentment of others' success. His willingness to blame everyone but himself. His view that rules were for regular people, not future millionaires like him. The way he'd joke about how I was sitting on a goldmine with my house. I thought they were personality quirks, not warning signs. If you're reading this and something feels off about a family member's financial behavior or requests, trust your gut. Don't let family bonds blind you to potential harm. Love doesn't mean leaving yourself vulnerable to exploitation. And if you discover fraud, don't let anyone guilt you into handling it privately. Crimes deserve consequences, regardless of who commits them. As for James, he's been transferred to a federal facility 3 states away. He'll be eligible for parole in 6 years with good behavior. Patricia says he's already talking about his plans for when he gets out, another business idea that will make millions. Some people never learn. I don't wish him ill, but I don't wish him well either. I nothing him, which my therapist says is actually a healthy place to be. He's a stranger who happens to share my DNA, someone who made choices that removed him from my life as thoroughly as if he died. In a way, he did die, at least the brother I thought I knew. Sarah and I are moving forward. We're actually refinancing the house next month, the original plan that started this whole discovery. We've turned what was going to be James's guest room into a home office for Sarah. We've planned a vacation with the money we're saving on the new mortgage rate. Life goes on. To those who've asked if I regret involving law enforcement, absolutely not. Actions have consequences. James counted on family loyalty to protect him while he showed none himself. He weaponized our relationship for his gain. That's not family, that's predation. Thank you to everyone who has followed this story and offered support. Your messages have meant more than you know during the darkest moments. If my story helps even one person recognize and stop family fraud, then some good will have come from this nightmare. This is my final update. James goes to prison next month, and I plan to be living my life, not tracking his. My house is secure, my family is protected, and the brother who betrayed me is facing justice. Sometimes that's the best ending you can hope for. Stay vigilant, trust but verify, and remember, family isn't a license to harm. Blood might be thicker than water, but it's not thicker than federal law. Epilogue, 6 months later. I wasn't planning to update again, but something happened that felt like the universe providing closure, and I wanted to share it. Last week, I received a call from Agent Johnson. The Chen fraud ring case had gone to trial, and the prosecution wanted to use my impact statement. While preparing for that, they discovered something interesting in Chen's records. James wasn't just a student of Chen's, he was being groomed to be a regional coordinator for the fraud ring. If he'd succeeded in stealing my house and getting away with it, he would have started recruiting others, teaching them how to defraud their families. My house wasn't the end goal, it was his entrance exam into a criminal organization. Chen got 25 years. His operation had facilitated over $50 million in family fraud across the country. Hundreds of families destroyed, all because people like James thought they were too special for honest work. But here's the moment that really got me. Patricia's oldest son, Nicholas, 15, wrote me a letter. He said he'd been angry at me for sending his dad to prison until his mom explained everything. He wrote, "Thank you for stopping him. I was starting to think that cutting corners and blaming others was normal because that's what Dad did. Now I know it's not. I want to be like you when I grow up, someone who does the right thing even when it's hard." I cried reading that letter. Maybe some good really has come from all this. The house refinance went through smoothly. We're saving $400 a month, money that's going straight into college funds for our kids. The home office has become Sarah's sanctuary where she started a successful freelance business. The security system we installed has given us peace of mind we didn't know we were missing. My parents are doing better. They've joined a support group for families of inmates, finding community with others navigating similar pain. My father told me last week that he's proud of how I handled everything. "You showed more strength and integrity than I might have," he said. Coming from him, that meant everything. James started his sentence 2 months ago. Patricia tells me he's already in trouble for trying to run a gambling ring in prison. Some people are just incapable of change. His kids are thriving without his toxic influence, though. Nicholas made honor roll, and his younger sister is excelling in soccer. Patricia's rebuilding her career and just got promoted to head nurse of her department. The extended family has mostly come around. My Aunt Margaret apologized, admitting she'd been naive about how dangerous James's actions were. The family gatherings are smaller now but more genuine. There's less pretense, more honesty. We don't talk about James, but his absence has somehow made us closer. I still have the occasional nightmare, still check the property records more than necessary. But the hypervigilance is fading. The therapist says I'm processing the trauma well, building what she calls post-traumatic growth. I'm not the same person I was before this happened. I'm more cautious but also more appreciative of the trustworthy people in my life. Christopher, the lawyer friend who guided me through those first crucial hours, told me something that resonated. Most people never have their trust tested this severely. You survived the test, protected your family, and sought justice. That's not common, that's exceptional. To anyone reading this who's facing family fraud, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not obligated to protect someone who's harming you, regardless of shared DNA. Document everything, get legal help immediately, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Family should be your safe harbor, not your greatest threat. When someone violates that sacred trust, they forfeit the privileges that come with being family. They become what they chose to be, criminals who happen to be relatives. My house is more than secure now. It's a fortress of legal protections that would make any future fraud attempt impossible. But more importantly, my real family, Sarah, our kids, the relatives who stood by us, the friends who showed up when we needed them, that family is stronger than ever. James is serving his time, facing the consequences of his choices. I'm living my life, free from the burden of his betrayal. Justice was served, not through revenge, but through the proper legal channels. The system worked, slowly but surely. That's my story. A man tried to steal my house. He happened to be my brother. He failed, went to prison, and life went on without him. It's not the family story I wanted to tell, but it's the one I lived. And survived. Thank you for reading. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and never apologize for protecting what's yours.